record, and we will get started. Okie dokie. Thank you for telling us a little bit more. Perfect. All right. So very, very warm welcome to everybody who is joining us on this lovely, sunny, very seasonally sunny, hot day in the UK today. We are delighted to have you here and we're thrilled to be here ourselves. This is for our Monday Live Well Live webinar. We're here supporting you all on your health and wellness journeys and your weight loss journeys. Really, the purpose is for us to bring you some evidence-based information. We like to share as much of that as we can with you, and we have webinars running virtually every week of the year. Just occasional times we have to miss due to low staff or extra holiday time, but we do try to be here. Do join us. We will record each webinar and the recording is then shared via an email. You'll receive a link in the next couple of days from the marketing team with the information of the recording. So for those of you who haven't met me before, I'm Ruth Taylor. I'm the nutritionist with Boots Online Doctor and also a registered nurse. I have been really in the whole healthcare world for a very, very many years, since I was 18, and have worked with a variety of different hats on. Absolutely love the work that we do together here with Boots Online Doctor in terms of supporting you. And really, this is for you. So any questions, please pop them into the Q&A box. If you ask us a question which is about your own personal health, that is very medically minded, then we will direct you to the right people to ask that question to. It's really not safe for us to be taking very personalized questions in these public forums. But apart from that, we want to hear from you. So do join in. We have a couple of polls we'll share with you today. They're completely anonymous. We just know whether people are answering and what the sort of trend of feelings are in the room, which is helpful to us. And I'm going to hand over to Sanam. Sanam, do say hi and do let everyone know about you.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. So my name's Sanam. I'm one of the senior pharmacist independent prescribers here at Boots Online Doctor, and I've been working here for the last 5 years. Where I've been one of the weight loss leads, and it's really, really great to see how many people turn up to these webinars and how many people are taking an interest in sort of like, going through healthy eating plans and healthier lives. So I'm really excited to be here today.
Great. And we're also joined, thanks, Anam. And we also have Chantal here, who is joining any of the links and really helping support us with the chat box. So thank you as well to Chantal for being here. We know that's a huge commitment and we really appreciate your time. So last week, goodness, what were we talking about? I think we were talking about sleep last week, from what I can remember. And so I'd love to hear from you. How's your week been? Have you had any insights, any wins, any awarenesses? What's been going on for you? Do share in the chat box if you're happy to. We love to hear from you. And right, I will investigate that link issue. Thanks, Tony. Really helpful for you to point that out. Someone else is setting up the webinar, so perhaps they used the wrong link. Okay, anyone, anything for you, Sanam? Oh, somebody's doing some step ups while you're listening. Well done, Jenny. I don't think I should join in right now, but maybe I'll commit to doing some when we finished. Sanam, anything for you?
So you're starting on tablets, feeling very positive. That's great to hear. The heat, yeah, the heat has been quite difficult, I think, for people to stay active. So that is quite a bit of a tough one. So if you do have like a fan or any sort of like, when you're using step up machines, that'd be really good. But it can feel quite lethargic. So just make sure you're drinking plenty of fluids because can help counteract some of that.
How brilliant. Somebody's reduced their snacks by clearing the cupboards of sweet things. Well done to you. That's a real commitment. And hopefully that will really help you. I agree with the heat, but actually what I've noticed, my water consumption has gone completely through the roof, which is fabulous. A couple of new people here. Thank you so much for joining us. Somebody else is taking up Pilates. Who's that, Gillian? Well done. Some really positive things. People are moving more. Really fantastic. So let's think about this. Have a think about what you want to get out of today and what you might want for yourselves over the coming week. And we'll maybe get you to do some commitments at the end because I think it can help concepts. So Sanam, talk to us. Why is this such an important subject?
Well, so Oh, sorry, let me just get my screen back again. So I just want to start talking about sort of weight loss, what that means, and what it's about. So we want to sort of focus on calories and not the whole story. So we've got different foods have very different effects in your body. So different foods influence you in different ways, and that's through different effects on hunger, your fullness, your energy levels, your cravings. So for example, we talk about like protein and fiber. They help you feel fuller for longer and support your body's natural appetite regulation. Whereas more processed and high sugar foods can leave you feeling quite hungry again quite quickly. And this is where it links to mindset. So, because your body is out of balance, it's much harder to stay on track. So, protein and fiber help regulate appetite by slowing gastric emptying. So, they help you feel fuller for longer. They release hormones, the satiety hormones, and sort of like the fullness hormones you get. And that's like the GLP-1 and peptide YY. This means you're less likely to overeat when your meals are high in protein and fiber, and because those hormones and that slower gastric emptying helps counteract that effect of eating. Research shows that protein and fiber help you feel fuller for longer. So that's why we always recommend increasing the intake of that in your meals. And when you feel satisfied, you're naturally less likely to overeat. So it's not about restrictions. That's what I meant by calories. It's not about just restricting your calories, but actually it's really key in what you're eating as well as quite important. And it's about choosing the foods that support your body. So the calories in and calories out model sounds quite simple, but it's actually not that simple when we come to talk about sort of long-term gains. It overlooks something really important. It doesn't take into account the psychological, emotional, and behavioral aspects of eating. And these all play a major role in weight management. So things like stress, emotional eating, and habit patterns, they all influence what and how much we eat. And there is more. So your body is not the same as the person sitting next to you. So you might notice, you get friends sometimes who may have lost more weight than you, or maybe losing quicker than you, and you may be doing the exact same thing. But there's lots of different factors at play when we're talking about sort of weight loss. So factors like body composition. So the amount of, sort of, say, for example, muscle fat and fat mass that you have can affect how fast you lose weight. Hormonal conditions like PCOS, thyroid function as well, they can all affect how your body responds to food. And that in turn then obviously affects how your weight changes and fluctuates. So when weight loss feels quite difficult, it's not a lack of willpower. So that's what I want to sort of get away from, because people do sometimes insinuate that it can be a lack of willpower. It's not a lack of willpower. It's often a combination of biology, behavior, and environment. So this is why we don't just focus on calories, we focus on the whole picture.
Yeah, it's a really important point. And
Mm.
I think, Chantal, I don't know if you have, but if you could share our GLP-1 meal planet, or say the protein-rich foods and the plant-based eating guides, that'd be really helpful. And also, we are not, we're still on the same side. So thank you. Yeah. The slides tend to be less dense than what we tend to say, just so you know, for anyone who's new and joining us. Also, if you have questions, please pop them into the Q&A box. We'll find them so much more easily than if they're in the chat box. We will look for them in the chat box, but we might have difficulty finding them because there's lots of other comments to filter out in the chat box. So let's think about our thoughts, because actually this is what we're here to think about today. We're thinking about that whole psychological aspect of being on a diet, of trying to lose weight, and what goes on in our head, really and truly. So our thoughts are really very powerful. They don't just sit in the background. They tend to shape how we feel, and they shape what we do. And I guess this diagram shows the reality quite nicely, really and truly. Our thoughts influence our emotions influence our behaviors, and our behaviors then reinforce our thoughts. So it becomes a really clear cycle. If that cycle is negative, we can keep getting stuck. We can get stuck in the thought of, I failed again. I can't do this. What's the point? Those thoughts lead to us feeling frustrated. They can really cause our motivation to disappear. And then our behaviors that take us further from what we want to be can really be impacted by our thoughts. If we start feeling like I'm failing, I'm never going to do this, guess what? We'll start eating all of the foods that give us that emotional comfort. But the great news is we can shift that cycle. And this is why we want to bring this up today. This is why it's such an important webinar. So the way you see yourself really, really matters. This is all about self-identity. If you see yourself as someone who always fails, guess what? Your behavior will often follow that belief. We are the stories that we tell ourselves. So if we tell ourselves, I'm a failure, I'm never going to do this, we can almost guarantee that that is going to be your story. You have to change the story. If you recognize this in yourself, then begin to shift your identity. Swap your messages from failure to I'm learning, I'm a work in progress, I'm someone who's working on my health. It actually really changes what happens. So if this applies to you, this is a really important thing to take away. Small changes can have a massive impact. Our journey, the journey that we're talking about here, isn't about perfection. We're not ever going to get it right 100% of the time. It's just about being consistent. And the more supportive the way you think, and you have to start catching those thoughts because they can be sitting there subliminally messaging you, the better. So catch those thoughts. So a more supportive mindset will help you keep going even through and after a wobble. We all have those limiting beliefs, things like, I don't have willpower. We hear that a lot. I can't stick to this. We hear that a lot. But those are thoughts. They're not facts. Let's change the dialogue. Let's get the facts right. And we need to start questioning those thoughts. So we almost need to start catching them the minute we think of them because they are so destructive. So it can also help us to think about visualizing where we're heading, what it is, how we want to feel, start sort of creating the sense of how that feels when you've achieved those goals, what that future you version of you is going to feel and look like, and just take a small step towards that. So catch that thought, challenge it, change the language that you say to yourself is really important. We're not trying to change everything overnight. We're just starting to change the way that we speak to ourselves. So my challenge to you is, okay, what would you say to yourself if you're thinking, okay, I've had a bad day. When I've had a bad day, I usually tell myself I'm rubbish. Or I failed, I'll give up, I'll start again tomorrow. What do you say to yourselves? Those are all things I've said to myself in the past. The more I understand this whole psychology, the more I know how destructive all of these thoughts are. And they can just be in our head. Anyone want to share anything? What do you say to yourself when you've had a bad day? Do you manage to say, it's okay, I'll start again tomorrow? I'd love to hear from you. So this leads nicely into thinking about the whole concept of self-sabotage. And this is something that here we see very often. We see it pretty much all of the time. And what we want you to know is that this is not something that is just about you. It's applicable to many, many people who are on this weight loss health journey. It's one of the most common reasons that people get stuck or feel stuck. And it's one of the reasons that people can find it hard just to get started. And this, interestingly, has got nothing to do with willpower. It's often a mix of our thoughts, our habits, our emotions, sometimes consciously, often completely unconsciously. Sabotage can look like putting things off, telling yourself things like, I'll start tomorrow, or this is a bad week, it's too busy, I'll start next week. Or maybe sabotage could be for you reaching for food when you're tired, emotional, overwhelmed, or stressed. Sometimes it can be a lot more subtle than that. You'd plan to go for a walk or to the gym, and then something comes up, a message, an invitation, a long day. We've got lots of days at the moment, it's very hot, and suddenly you'll find that you're completely off track, not because you don't care, but because something has taken over in the moment. And a course I did recently that was talking all about how we change our behavior is it can be really motivated to do something. We can be motivated about that thing all day, but if something comes along that motivates us more, we're going to find it very hard to stay on track. And I find that quite interesting. And I think that's definitely something I've noticed about myself. So let's talk about triggers. There can be internal triggers, things like stress, boredom, low mood, loneliness, and also other people, external triggers, the environment that we're in. Maybe you drive home, you stop at the garage, guess what? There's loads of sweets there. There's bottles of wines that you can pick up really easily and will talk to you that actually after a long day, those are the things you perhaps want most. People are really sometimes really helpful, really unhelpful. It could be the people who buy you the food when you really don't want it, or because they want to eat pizza, they want you to eat pizza as well. And this isn't about blame, it's about bringing you to the point of awareness and recognizing there are going to be people in our environment who might sabotage us. And it might be that we allow that to happen because it's easier, we want the quiet life, or even we just want to eat the pizza. So I think we sometimes have to actually take a moment, start reflecting about this. Do any of these patterns feel familiar to you? Because awareness, I think, is really one of the first steps. So somebody's saying you've mastered all of those sabotage. So it's time to actually change that story to yourself. I'll start again next Monday. Somebody said it's very, very common. Usually on a Tuesday. Oh my goodness, yeah, I've been in that world as well. We really know boredom is when I reach for something and that something is usually not nutritious. We really, really understand comfort eating strikes a chord with me. And sometimes I don't realize until a long time later. It's so automatic. When it's automatic, you need to move those comfort foods out of your environment. They need to be either not there at all or somewhere completely different. So you just can't get there in that moment. You've had that pause. The pause is really important. We'll talk about this more, but I'm glad it's resonating. It's a tough one. It's a tough one, I think, isn't it, Sanam, to be honest with ourselves about because we
Yeah.
tend to think it's all about calories in, calories out. That's what
Yeah.
we've been told for decades. But actually, this webinar, I think, nails it really. It's the emotional aspect of that relationship with ourselves. So important.
So we talk goes quite nicely onto sort of diets that people follow. So restrictive diets that I think somebody did mention in the chat about having to reduce calories and how they can, they can be quite effective at first. So initially you will, you probably will lose that weight because they've got the calories going in and calories going out, and usually maybe you've eaten more than usual. So that might feel quite effective at first. You might see some quick changes. But over time, they do often become harder to sustain, which, I've noticed when I've done sort of this calories counting as well. It becomes harder to sustain because what you end up doing is just restricting too much. So your body starts then pushing back. Your energy drops and your hunger increases. And that food starts to take up more space in your thoughts. So the psychological aspect kicks in as well. This is what we sometimes call diet fatigue. Alongside that, we often see emotional eating increase, and it's not because anything's gone wrong, but it's just because restrictions can actually heighten cravings and make food feel more urgent. And that's when the cycle develops. So you've got cycle of restriction followed by overeating, and then followed by guilt. You feel quite guilty after you've eaten quite a lot, and thinking, "Oh God, that's not shouldn't have eaten that much." And then you go back to restriction again. So it just goes round in circles. And this is not about willpower. It's very normal. It's a very normal biological and psychological response. So if you've ever experienced this, you haven't failed. So it wouldn't be hard on yourself. It's not about failure. It's just your body doing exactly what it's designed to do. So this is why we move away from extremes and focus instead on nourishment, balance, and something that feels sustainable. Because long-term change doesn't come from punishment, it comes from working with your body. So it's quite important to sort of realize that as well. And one of those things which can cause, sorry, just on to the next slide, I think. So I'll go on to talk a little bit more about stress, which is one thing which might cause differences in sort of hunger and helping manage what you're eating. So stress is sometimes what we all experience. So it can show up in different ways. So sometimes it's quite obvious, when you've had a busy week, you've had a busy week and it's been a stressful week. You've had a difficult situation. Again, you're probably quite aware that you've had that difficult situation. And sometimes, or a lot of the time, it's actually more subtle. So it could be just running late, might have had poor sleep. A lot of people just feel constantly on when you've got loads of things to do. I know that during the day, I've got to do this with the kids. I've got to go to work. So it's just those tiny little things that you get, that sort of baseline sort of stress that you might get. So all of these trigger a stress response in your body. So whether it's from constant stress or bouts of stress, and when that happens, your body releases stress hormones like cortisol. Now, this is quite useful, and cortisol quite useful managing it in the short term. It's designed to help keep us alert and ready. But when stress becomes ongoing, it starts to affect other systems. So you then might notice stronger cravings, especially for those quick energy foods. I know for sure that if I'm quite stressed, I will reach for those quick energy foods, eating more in the afternoons or evenings, or feeling too tired to even cook or move. And again, this is not about willpower. It's just your body trying to cope. So when we talk about all the hormones and the cortisol that's going on, that's all your body just trying to cope and instigating you sort of having those stronger cravings, eating more and feeling a bit more tired. So stress can also affect blood sugar, so leading to more fluctuations in energy and hunger, which can make things feel even more harder. So when weight loss feels more difficult during stressful periods, there usually is a reason. And this is where awareness becomes really powerful. Because once you really understand those patterns, you can then start to plan for them. So once you sort of understand what makes you maybe more stressed or times where you experience that stress, you can start planning, maybe keep those sugary snacks away because you're going to have a stressful day at work or whatever else it might be. So it's really important that you sort of start understanding these patterns and start forward planning, I guess. And Ruth, I think you're going to talk a bit more about awareness for us.
Yeah, so I think really it's sort of getting that awareness. So really awareness is the thing that creates that opportunity to make those changes. Like somebody just said in the chat box, actually stress is the thing that perhaps really undermines them, that sort of stops the ability to stay focused, brings in all the wrong foods generally. And moderation, somebody's saying, Tony, you saying you found moderation really difficult, so you've decided it's no snacks in the house for a while. And it's amazing. But if you feel very hungry the next day, somebody's saying, Anita, if you don't eat healthily, your appetite changes. And that's all to do with which hormones are being promoted by the foods that you're eating, your blood glucose management as well. So take a moment here. When we talk about awareness and triggering behavior change, what does that actually mean for you? Because so much of what we've talked about so far happens automatically. And like yesterday, I have to say, we had pizza. It was someone's birthday, pizza for tea, and I really felt awful afterwards because I definitely had at least one slice too many. And it's just, I was in the wrong environment. It's the most delicious pizza I'd had in a very long time. How easy is it? No mindfulness was happening there for me at all. We're all human. It happened automatically. So those thoughts, the habits, the pattern, when something is automatic, it can really 100% feel like we don't have much control. But awareness changes that. It brings those patterns into light. So it's worth keeping a sort of journal and just actually noting down and seeing if you can see patterns erupting. You need to try and find the patterns. You need to remember you have a choice. You might start to notice that when you're stressed, you eat more. Certain situations throw you completely off track. Your thoughts might become more negative, and that might be a triggering factor for you. This isn't about judging ourselves, it's just about noticing, because we know that awareness can really happen and really make a difference. So if you notice something, put in a pause. Somebody's saying they've got rid of the snacks from the house. Brilliant. Well done for clearing those out. Move them to a different place in the house. If you need them there for other people, move them somewhere else. They won't be your quick go-to response. So pause, reflect, think what you could do differently, and respond differently next time. Awareness isn't about judging yourself, it's about giving yourself a load more choice. Over time, this can help you in terms of breaking patterns, building new habits, and feeling more in control of the decisions that you're making. And that's where real life and real change begins, because actually those things are really important. It's not about being perfect, it's about building awareness. And I think we don't talk about this enough. This is powerful, really important, and it's not subtle. So, mindful thinking is all about this awareness, really, and sort of in a whole sort of process that you can learn to do. So, it's a simple way of becoming more aware of your thoughts, noticing them, not judging them, because our supports can be the thing that either help us or hold us back. So the first step in this is just to notice that thought. Maybe it's, I've messed up, I never get this right. And instead of automatically believing it, we need to pause and we need to question it. There's a term called take your thought to court. It's almost like challenge yourself. Really think, is this true? Is this really what's happening? Do I really believe this of myself? Um, Really, it's time to think. Put in the pause, think about, is this just a habit? Is it a habit I have of thinking this way? And then we can begin to reframe it. We don't want to try and become unrealistic in that framing. We need to become a little bit more supportive. We go from I failed to not I'm succeeding, because that's like a huge step. We can go from I failed to I'm learning. I'm going to get it wrong sometimes, I'll get it right at others. I've gone off track to I can reset at the next meal. It's not a big disaster. So I think it's about calming that overreaction down. It can also help to focus, I think, on what's going well. We talk a little bit about gratitude in these webinars and actually thinking about things that are working well. Maybe you have more energy when you wake up in the morning, because I think it's really easy to overlook progress and almost like set the bar so high that we don't even recognize the little wins along the way. And actually, recognition and actually just really getting a sense of perspective is a huge win, because it will help you make those changes. Self-compassion is really important. Speaking to yourself like you're talking to somebody that you care about, your best friend. Treat yourself as your best friend. And actually, all of those little things that you're doing there can really help to create new patterns. And those patterns can become our new habits. And that is where lasting change can really happen. So, this is really not simple. It sounds very simple. We all know the reality, it isn't. Sanam, do you agree? It's not simple, but it can be done, can't it?
Yeah, and it's just about like we're going into mindful eating as well. So again, it's just about thinking and paying attention, sorry, and just being present with your food. So without that judgment again. So you just want to be present with your food and just pay attention to what you're doing and when you're eating it and how you're feeling. So because for many of us, eating has become quite, I think like Ruth mentioned before, quite automatic. So you almost just reach for food and eat it without really thinking about it. We eat while we're working, we eat while we're watching TV, and we're scrolling on the phones, and before we know it, the food's gone. And we don't really even feel fully satisfied, but because it's almost like an automatic response, that I know when I watch TV, I might just reach for a pack of crisps and just quite easily eat it without sort of thinking about it. And this can often feel like, you're hungry all the time. So you're feeling like I'm always hungry or constantly reaching for snacks. And it's not because your body necessarily needs more food, but it's more because you haven't had that moment of awareness. So this really is a simple way to think about mindful eating. So first, we notice the food, then we observe it. Then what does it look like? So just think about, what am I eating and what does it look like? And what does it smell like? Probably smells quite nice. But we feel what's happening in the body. So how is your body now responding to that food? How do we feel? Are we hungry or are we just eating out of habit? So then we taste the food, really paying attention to the flavor and texture. And finally, we enjoy it. So when we eat this way, something interesting happens. We often feel more satisfied even with less food. So we start to recognize fullness more easily and begin to make choices which are more in line in how we want to feel. And this, again, is not about eating perfectly. It's not about getting everything perfect. It's just about creating a small pause because that pause is where our choices live. So this is where the choices live. And this links really nicely to the next tool we're going to look at, which is the hunger scale, which Ruth is going to quite nicely go into for us. Ruth, I think you might be on mute or not.
I am
Yeah.
on mute. I
Oh, there
was.
we
I know
go.
you're not. Okay, so yeah, this is a slide that looks at something called the hunger scale. It's a tool. So for some people, it's really helpful, and for other people, maybe less helpful. So it's about just having a thought, is this something that might help you? But actually, I think one of the things that it brings up is when we should start eating and when we should consider stopping eating. And it takes practice. Um, and you need to start almost by pausing before you start eating. You also need to just check in with yourself and think, okay, where am I on this hunger scale now? We'd say don't wait to eat until you're extremely hungry. We'd say maybe start eating when you're around that 3 or 4. You're hungry, you're not starving hungry. Because if we wait till we're starving hungry, we know that the reality is we may rush, eat very quickly, and potentially overeat. So it can be harder to make calm, balanced choices when we get to that starvation stage. So we don't want that to happen. As you eat, try and check in with yourselves while you're eating and aim to stop when you're comfortably full, comfortably satisfied. Now, this can be really difficult because I think as a society, we've almost stopped thinking about this. We almost like fill our plates with food, we eat what's on our plate, we quite often go back for more. So that's not criticism, that's just reality. So we want you to start thinking about tuning in. Now, this can be really hard. So, tuning in. One of the things that can help is actually slowing down how quickly we eat. It can take around 20 minutes for our body to register fullness. So, if you're somebody who is a really speedy eater, or you're sitting in front of the computer or in front of the TV when you're eating, all of your digestion is going to be much slower. The processing is going to be a lot slower. So, we want to be thinking time out to eat, chewing really well. What's the expression? Chew your liquids and swallow your food. I think it's sort of like something like that. So sort of basically means you need to chew everything till it's sort of like in a liquidy, really mushed down format, because that way your digestion's going to work more effectively as well. And think about that 20 minutes. So if you start eating and finish a meal in 10 minutes, you're still going to feel hungry because you're not going to have that trigger to register that your body's received the food. You're not going to know you've had enough to eat. Slowing down can really help. Again, this isn't about perfection, it's about bringing awareness. It can take quite a bit of practice. Some days you'll get it right, others less so. That's completely normal. And for those who are coming off GLP-1 medications, which we know some people will want to, this type of approach can really help. So if you're heading into that maintenance, this would be really relevant. And just see if your hunger signals still don't feel clear or may feel stronger than before when you come off that medication, this can be something that could help you at that stage. We want to bring in a little bit more structure when we're heading into that maintenance. We want that regular meals, the balanced plates, and using this hunger scale can be, again, quite helpful. What we're really trying to avoid is getting starving hungry or being overly full. So you don't even have to use the scale. You could just almost think in your head, okay, these are the two things I want to avoid. I don't want to be overly full. I don't want to be starving hungry. Those things. Now, some people won't have very much appetite at all. So at this point in your lives, this might not really help you. But also, then maybe you need to use the clock because what we also don't want you to get is to the point where you're body is hungry. You may not be getting the message, but actually your body will still need some fuel. So just start where you are. It can be helpful, not helpful for everyone, helpful for some people, not for everyone. And Sanam, you're going to read through our key take-home messages, and I'm going to share the final poll, which I think we unfortunately missed the first poll, but we'll give you a couple of polls now. So we're going to try this poll. Brilliant. So we're just sharing that, I believe. Uh,
Yeah.
Again, this is completely anonymous.
So we'll come to the end, so just sort of round up. So weight loss isn't just about food. It's about how we think, and that's really important. And also how we feel, when we're eating foods and in the behaviors that we're doing in moments of stress, and how we respond in those moments. So we've talked about how your thoughts can shape your behaviors, how stress, habits, and emotions can pull you off track, which is quite really easy and will happen throughout every day in your life, I think, and how awareness helps you take back control. So the key things to take away are start to notice your patterns. So be curious, don't be overly critical of yourself. Just be curious on, for example, if you're eating more in the evenings, just be curious, why is that? And just to monitor that and sort of like Ruth mentioned before, just to keep sort of either logs to see why things are happening in the way that they are, why you're eating certain foods at certain times. And it's not about criticizing yourself and being critical. And use simple tools like mindful eating and the hunger scale to help support you. And if your weight has stabilized, that doesn't mean you're stuck. That's often a normal response that your body is just adapting to its new weight. So it's quite usual that your weight will stabilize. And it's not about doing everything perfectly, it's just about small steps. So just take simple, small steps, have that steady progress, and most importantly, just be kind to yourself along the way. So don't be too harsh on yourselves. Like I think somebody mentioned that they went out for dinner. I mean, things like that, I find just getting back on track and just be mindful in what you're eating and how you're feeling, and just getting yourself back on track as well. So I think when Ruth has done the final poll, we've also got a little message from some of our marketing team. So we're just looking to feature some real stories from people who've used Boots Online Doctor to inspire others and to show how the service can support their health journey. If you think this might be something you're interested in sharing and want to share your story and want to learn more even from us, and you might not even be sure, that's fine. You could just email us at marketing@bootsdigitalhealth.co.uk, and I think Shita will put that link in the chat as well if anybody is interested in that.
Great, thanks, Sanam. So I can see from your responses on the poll that the most popular thought this week is perhaps to start practicing a little bit more around mindful eating and also paying more attention to your thoughts, which is great to hear. Also, progress, not perfection, is up there as well as a popular response. So I'm really pleased to hear that. And before we head into the Q&A, we're also just going to check in with you, and I can't see what's going on. Want to know also which phase of weight loss you're in. So I'm just going to share that poll with you as well. Here you go. And there we go. So do let us know where you're at in terms of your weight loss journey. There's no right or wrong. This is completely anonymous, but it's helpful for us to know who's here with us today and where you are on that journey. So do have a look at this poll. And finally, while you're having a look at that, just to remind you what we've got coming up over the next few weeks. We're going to talk all about yo-yo dieting next week and how to break out of that cycle, something that's really important for anyone who's been in that cycle of having lost and then regained and lost and regained weight. We really want to help you move away from that cycle as much as possible. Then the week after that, we're going to be looking at the science of how we get that lasting weight loss. This is really important. And then right at the beginning of August, we're going to be talking about what to eat to really support you on your weight loss journeys. And there are recordings of those as well available. So in the if we could share the link to previous recordings, just in case people are on holiday and can't join us. We're going to be taking a break from the webinars on the 10th of August. And other than that, we will be here all the way through the summer. And those events will be on Eventbrite. So do sign up for those if you would like to come along. We really appreciate that. It's a busy time of year, might not be right. So let's have a quick look, Sanam, at the poll. So 50% of you today are just starting out. So very warm welcome to anyone who's not joined us on a webinar before. 30% midway through, and about 15% of you, that's quite a lot of you today, almost at your goal. So well done. A very smaller number in maintenance, but how fantastic, and well done, and thank you for being here. This is such an important subject for anyone at any stage. so not often recognized in the big wide world. So we want to bring your attention to the importance of thinking how our thoughts can sabotage us. It's so important. So well done to those who are losing all of this weight. There's a whole variety. There are a few people here who have up to a stone to lose, to quite a few people who have 5 stone or more to have lost or to lose. So thank you. It's helpful for us to know what's going on for you. We really appreciate you taking the time to do those polls. So thank you so much. I am going to stop sharing the screen. Sorry for wittering on. And we're going to come to your questions. Now we're going to use that upvoting system in the Q&A box. We will come to the questions in the Q&A box first, and if we have time, we will come to the questions in the chat box. And apologies in advance if we don't answer every question. We'll do our best to get through as many as possible. Sanam, do you want to take the first one?
Yes, I've got day one of a new higher dose. What would you recommend to eat as the first couple of injections? Feeling quite sick and nauseous overnight. So I probably would say if you are getting side effects, probably message into your suppliers if that's us. Just send us a message and we could give you some more detailed advice. But a lot of people do feel that, if they do feel a bit sick and nauseous, so keep the foods a bit lighter. So don't overly, especially when we're talking about oily foods and things like that, just reduce those. Make sure you keep your fluid intake up. And if you are finding that you're still feeling quite nauseous, it might be that you might need to take a little bit of a break from your injection. But again, that all depends on your sort of side effects. So there are some teas that can help as well. So maybe some teas that can help with a bit of nausea, like ginger. Ginger tea might help. That's normally quite good for nausea as well. Just make sure you keep hydrated. It's really important. And then just maybe a message in as well so we can advise you on specifically with that dosing what you can do to help reduce those sort of side effects as well.
Great. Sam, I mean, when you're looking at the questions, if you opt in the top right-hand corner to go for not most recent but most updates, it
Ah,
tells us
okay, I
which
didn't know
ones people want
that.
us to
Brilliant.
answer. Brilliant.
So should
So
I take
some,
that one? I
yeah, you're
think that,
fine. It's okay.
yeah,
Uh,
okay.
Now somebody's coming off Manjaro after a successful weight loss. They're worried that they would just bounce back, and that Manjaro has become a mental crutch. How best to manage this? I would say the best way of managing this is to reduce your dose down and build the habits in that are going to help you sustain. And also, Sanam, I think you'd agree, we know that when you stop Manjaro, you will get an increase in your appetite. So the things you can do: fill up on fiber, fill up on protein, make sure they're nailed on your plate. Even if you don't love them, learn to love them. They're really important. The vegetables, those colourful vegetables, full of fiber, really important to really boost those up. They will help you stay full. So this is really important. And also just think about, if that isn't helping, maybe introducing like a starter of a bowl of vegetable soup or salad, because again, it's about building in that food, taking your time to eat, like we were saying just now, Sanam, chewing
Mm.
slowly, taking time to eat, letting those sort of overwhelming hungers really calm down, and eventually you'll rebalance. Sanam, anything else you would add?
No, I think that's sort of covers, you mentioned about the mechanical. We've got the next one sort of leads on to that as well, I guess, with the protein powders. So I guess I didn't want to take that. I think somebody's asked, do you recommend using protein powders? So again, that
Yeah.
sort of eating action, that mechanical process you have with actually biting into proteins and chewing them, that sort of sensory response does also release sort of like different hormones in your body which keep you full for a bit longer. So protein powders are, I think, I don't know if you would agree with, they're probably quite good if maybe if you don't get your protein intake and really struggling with getting protein from other sources, so whether that's egg, lean meats, or fish, then you might want to add in protein powders. But I would probably say maybe try getting them your protein content for the day from actual foods as well, because you get the additional nutrients that you might not get from protein powders. But if you are really struggling then with protein content, you might want to consider powders. But again, the chewing action you get with foods, such as actual real proteins, then I don't know, Ruth, if you agree with that or
Yeah, generally I agree. I think there are going to be some people who will struggle. And don't forget, our recommended protein intake as a minimum is 1 gram of protein per kilogram of your current body weight. So it's really worth just looking and seeing where you come to in terms of that. And we've shared the resource, I think, on protein-rich foods, which are, depending on what you eat, you want to be thinking beans, tofu, lentils, all of those factors as well count. If you really are struggling, then supplementing a little bit of protein maybe across the day. So I actually, instead of just saying, right, I'll just have protein at 2 meals and I'll just do a protein powder at one, you'll probably have a better response if you just have that small amount of protein at each meal and then put the protein powder in as the top up, because for all the reasons that Sanam's explained, and also it's a processed source of protein. So in terms of how it impacts your blood glucose is going to be different. So in terms of the 1 gram of protein per kilogram of your current body weight for the person who's just asked in the chat box. So work out. So if you weigh 80 kilograms, you need 80 grams of protein a day. And what you would do is you would divide that across your 2 or 3 meals so that you make sure you've got it sort of like covering across the day. I hope that makes sense. Good. So we've covered that. So somebody's saying they don't like olive oil. Is avocado oil a good substitute for stir frying salad or dressing? Now, let me have a think about avocado oil. I think it has got a lower heat point. Now, what that means is that the chemical composition of the oil will change when you heat it up. So olive oil has got a higher heat point. So that means you can cook with it without it changing the complexity of that oil. Avocado's lower down. So you want to cook at lower temperatures or ideally use it as a dressing over the top of things. And yeah, in which case you would get some healthy benefit from that. Okay, let's move on. That's quite an interesting question. So thank you for asking. Over to you, Sanam. Somebody's asking about counting calories.
I currently count my calories. They aren't low, but I do it more to check my protein and fiber. Sure, I try to move. So calorie counting, I think, is fine if you're doing it in addition to making sure that you're eating the correct food. So, like you said, if you're doing it in addition to making sure you're getting protein and fiber and sufficient amounts of nutrients in your food as well, you do at some point. I suppose you can't eat endlessly. You wouldn't think to eat endlessly, but it's just not to focus too much on just the calories. So, for example, I could say I'll have 1,000 calories today, 2 bars of chocolate, as long as it's within my calorie allowance. So that's what we want to move away from, just counting those calories. You want to be, that's fine to sort of count the calories to make sure, sort of strict in, but you need to really think about what's making you feel full and satisfied with what you're eating as well, and work with that rather than just to restrict your calories. So whether that's protein, fiber, if you've got them within your meals, but you also need to just be quite mindful, is that making you feel quite full and is that making you feel satisfied? Because like what we said, you want to aim for long term and not for that short term sort
Yeah.
of patchwork, you say almost. But yeah.
Exactly. And don't forget, all calories aren't equal. So I think that's the biggest issue with calories. So as you were saying, Sanam, if you had those 1,000 calories from those less healthy, more processed foods, they aren't going to give you the level of satiety. They are potentially going to affect your gut microbiome, which is going to affect your health. And we know that the gut microbiome can really help in terms of the hormones that we produce, the GLP-1s, the satiety hormones. So all of those things all figure in there as well. And you could have two foods with completely the same calorie content, but actually the impact on you, your satiety, your energy are going to be completely different. So come along to the How to Eat webinar, the What to Eat webinar, which is on the 3rd of August if you can, because we'll go into that in a lot more detail. But yeah, that's the basics covered, I think, for today. Um, so somebody's saying they recently started adding electrolytes to their water to help increase daily fluid intake. However, I've noticed that drinking the electrolyte water makes me feel very full, which reduces my appetite. As a result, I've mostly been eating fruit throughout the day and not consuming enough balanced meals. Could you advise what changes I could make to maintain proper hydration while also ensuring I'm getting adequate nutrition? Brilliant. That's such a complicated question, but I love it. I would, if you're really noticing that those electrolyte powders or the electrolytes are playing havoc with your hunger, always start with food. Remember, we can get electrolytes from our food as well. So we can get the potassium, the magnesium, the sodium just from normal foods. So, be thinking about those vegetables which are high in water. They will naturally have higher contents of minerals in as well. So that'd be where I'd want you to start. Also, be thinking protein. Protein has many beneficial impacts when we're losing weight. Helps with feeling full, that's number one. Helps with blood sugar management, number two. But really, one of the most important jobs protein will be doing is helping to preserve your muscle mass. We really want you to preserve your muscle mass because that is key in terms of sustainable weight loss. So protein becomes a really big friend in this whole weight loss journey. It cannot be overstated. You don't want too little, you don't want too much. All of those things become the right amount for each of us will be different based on who we are, how much movement we're doing, how much activity we do, our life stage. All of those things factor in, but the place to start is at 1 gram per kilogram. Fill your plate up with those vegetables as well, and really put the colour in, add a little bit of healthy fat, see how you get on doing that. And in terms of proper hydration, use your urine as a barometer. You want your urine to be a pale straw colour. We could share. I think we'll try and find something to share with you for that for future resources. Just because to me that's a really important thing to be thinking about. You don't want it so pale that it looks like clear water. You want it with a little tinge of colour in, and you don't want it too dark. So being well hydrated is really important. How to cope with eating at a restaurant. Yeah, we'll pick that up. I love that idea. So thank you. Okay, sorry, it just flashed in my eyes. Next one for you, Manjaro. I'm going to say it for you.
Yeah.
Manjaro 12.5 was working well. I lost 15 kg. Well done. I had to stop for an operation for 6 weeks. I started again at 2.5 and increased every 4 weeks to 10, but my weight has plateaued. What should I do? Thank you. Great
Yeah, the
question.
plateau stage is really the important time where it's really you have to sort of maintain the good work that you've done. So it's just maintaining those eating habits that you have. And plateauing is actually a really normal stage in your sort of weight loss journey anyway. Your body starts to sort of counter, try to fight the sort of weight loss. And it's almost like your body's just now getting used to the weight that is lost. And your body does tend to plateau. But then after, plateaus vary in different people. So they can last of different varieties from months to weeks, so that's not unusual. The important thing I think is when you do plateau, just stay focused and don't be demotivated that you're not now losing weight. Initially, when you start losing weight and you go on the injections, you will find that you lose it quite rapidly and then it will slow down and then you'll plateau. And that I think is where people sort of get a little bit demotivated and think, well, actually, it's not really working. Actually, it's probably the opposite. It's probably working quite well, and now your body's now trying to adjust to its new weight. So just keep going in what you're sort of what you've been doing and maintain those eating habits, and then you should come out of your plateau at some stage. Some people find increasing their dosage helps, but that again will depend on your um, sort of side effect history and sort of like what you've been on and how long you've been on it. So it's always good to sort of ask your clinician who provided the treatment on whether you should increase or not. But that would depend on sort of like your history and stuff. But I don't know if you've got anything to add, Ruth, or if there's
Yeah,
anything that might
I
help.
think you're absolutely right with everything you're saying. I'd say I see plateaus as a bit of a win because there's a bit of a recalibration point. I think for this person, um you've had to stop and you now increased up. So you've had surgery. Don't know what the surgery was, but actually, I think that whole process of going through surgery in terms of what's going on physiologically in your body is going to be creating a lot more of those stress hormones as well. So actually, to be in a situation where you're plateauing and doing okay, I think is really good. I think you need to reframe what's going on. I think we tend to forget the wider implications of health and what's going on in our bodies, and we're not just talking about weight loss as an entity all on its own. We're talking about weight loss as an entity in terms of our whole health picture and our holistic health in our body. So if we've got imbalances going on, they may cause a bit more inflammation. That may be causing a bit of disruption. So actually, right now, plateauing may be a win. And I would reframe it as much as possible like that. really put a little bit more attention and focus into the healing, the nurturing foods, maybe following the Mediterranean style of eating, bringing in those healthy fats, just really doing everything to nurture your body and also manage stress because all of those things are really stressful. So there's a stress webinar that we do, maybe come along to the next iteration or watch a replay on that because I think that may also be worth considering. I hope that helps. We'll move on. Somebody's saying they drink alcohol after a stressful day, which is their downfall. Any tips? That's a really tough one, and you're not alone with that, are you? We know this is not unusual. So, any tips? There's some great alcohol alternatives. There's gosh, I'm trying to think if there's an alternative alcohol-free gin, which is really nice and has some calming theanine in, which can help to give you that same effect. There's a new drink on the market called Mother Root, which is a very gingery drink, which is again alcohol-free. So it's almost like creating the treat in a different way and almost having those at the front of the cupboard and seeing if you can make the swap. And just think if you're taking a weight loss medication, we would recommend not having too much alcohol because actually it's slightly contraindicated with a weight loss medication, isn't it, Sanam? So
Yeah.
the liver doesn't need to be processing the medication and the alcohol. So ideally cut it down for health reasons and for weight loss reasons as well.
Mm.
Hopefully that helps. It's not easy. If anybody's got any tips that they found worked for them about reducing alcohol after a stressful day, do share in the chat box. We'd love to hear those as well.
I've got another one. I've
Okay.
recently oh, should I do that one
Yeah, go
or
for
do
it.
I've got time? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got recently discovered that I eat when I'm upset and then I get angry with myself and eat more. I think like we discussed in the webinar, that's quite usual, quite normal responses actually that most of us probably feel when we've got that added stress and when we're angry and got emotional factors going on. And I think those are the periods where you have to really stop and think, what am I eating? And it's really good that you've actually recognized that actually that is when you eat more and you've actually sort of gone that extra step and you're actually sort of almost there anyway, sort of realizing and being quite aware and this is what's happening in your body and that's how you're feeling and with your emotions. So I think just maybe replacing things that, like I said, what's around you. So when you do find that you eat more and you're upset, well, what is it that you're eating? Maybe replace them with either different types of foods. And I think somebody mentioned they got rid of all the snacks. That could be an option to get rid of a lot of the unhealthy sort of foods that you tend to reach for, so that you have like maybe nuts or fruits and stuff that you do eat when you might feel a little bit more stressed. And also just finding ways of managing, how can you manage that stress? When is it that you feel more stressed? And is there anything that you can do? I mean, it's quite difficult. It depends. I don't know what the actual stress or what it is in itself that's causing it. But if there's anything else you can add in addition to that, I don't
Yeah,
know.
definitely. Somebody's saying they drink fruit tea and have bought themselves a beautiful teapot, buying some fancy loose leaf tea and actually making it sort of like a bit of a ritual. Sounds fantastic. I would say you can buy little protein balls now, which I think are really great, and you can also make them really, really easily. So they're really worth, I think, just having some supportive snacks around as well. Okay, I mean, obviously the ideal is no snacks, but really and truly, we're not talking about perfection. And if we're talking about like when we're really, really agitated or angry or upset, it's really difficult to be mindful when you're feeling like that. So I'd put a pair of shoes on and go outside for 10 minutes and just get some fresh air and do some breathing. But you can't always put that in, that break can't always be in. So let's see. Great. All right, let's move on. So somebody is saying in the chat box there's an upvoted question that we've missed. So let's have a quick look at what that is. About Huel that has been upvoted past where you're in the Q&A now. Could you answer that one? We'll try. We'll come to it. Let's have a look and see if we can find it. Okay. How many calories should I be eating on a daily basis to lose weight? I'm a woman trying to count calories, but I have no idea. Okay, Chital, can you share the BMR link? There's a link that we'll share in the chat box that can help you to calculate your calorie requirements. You then need to add in a little calculation for how active you are, and that will get you to a partial helpful sort of number. It is a little bit more complex than that because when you think about fat mass and things, but it's a good starting point. You can also go on free resources that will help you do that as well. So have a look at Chantal, if you could share that resource, that would be really good. Can you see the question that somebody is asking about
I
Huel?
can't see it. I think somebody put 7, but I can't see. Um,
Okay, so are you asking about Huel and whether it's a healthy substitute or maybe pop? Oh, here we go. No, sorry. Okay, are meal replacement drinks like Huel a good resource at times you struggle eating healthy meals? I think it's personal. It's much more personal. I know some people who really love Huel and feel great on it, and others who feel really not so great on it. No personal comment on that. So I think it is about finding something that if you try it, you feel good, your energy's good, you feel satisfied, you don't need to eat again for 3, 4, or 5 hours, and it's bringing in that caloric requirement and a good level of protein, and that it doesn't have loads of additives in as well. So really have a look at the back of the label. There are loads of proteins. There are some on the Boots website as well that I've looked at that look reasonably good. It's about finding something that works for you. So really, it's about you. We're all so incredibly different that one person would love it, feel great, and others less so. So let's have a quick whiz. 2 more questions, and then we're going to sign off for today. Or maybe just one. It's just gone 2. So thank you. Somebody's struggling with not feeling hungry and not eating enough. If you are taking a weight loss medication, I'd recommend talking to your weight loss medication provider and seeing if it's worth reducing down your dose, because we don't want, what we would say at the Boots Online Doctor is that we don't want you not eating enough. We'd want you to really think about supporting your food first, and that the medication actually is a supportive mechanism to help you get those sort of like the right foods in as much as possible. Would you agree, Sanam?
yeah, I think it's really is a bit individual. So I
Yeah.
think I've
We've done that. Right. So, okay. I think we are probably as far as we can go with your questions. It's been a brilliant webinar. Um, Somebody's saying that they're using photograph AI photographs to actually assess their food. Yes, there are all sorts of amazing gizmos that do that. I don't think the accuracy is great. And if you put a smoothie in there, I think it would really struggle. But it's a help. And if you find it helpful, then that's absolutely perfect, isn't it? That's all we want. Just anything that helps. Thank you so much. Sorry, some of the links aren't working. We will share the links out in an email, which will give you the link to today's recording and also to all of the resources that we have shared. Thank you so much for sharing with one another and also for your tips that you've shared today, because actually we're here to support you and you're here to support one another as well. So we love being here. We will see you again next Monday. Thank you so much to Sanam and to Shital for being here. And thank you to all of you for giving up an hour of sunshine. Have a good week, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.